anyone has questions or corrections, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Now we will have a presentation. We'll hear a presentation from Philip St. Pierre, who will update this committee on the October 2025 service changes. Mr. Pierre.
Good morning. Thank you, committee members. I'm Philip St. Pierre, Director of Transit Scheduling, and I am here to give a presentation on the October 19th, 2025 service changes that are coming up next month. The first changes we're going to talk about today is the 28X. We are anticipating that the new terminal at the airport will be open, and we will be modifying our routing to service that that new airport terminal. So we'll be going from the old terminal over to the new side. It's going to be a singular stop at the commercial curb at the new terminal. So we've been coordinating with the airport and as they're getting prepped and doing all their run-throughs and getting ready to open the terminal, we've been doing the same and getting ready to train our operators and get that new stop implemented there at the new terminal. Another big change is the Mount Washington Tunnel is nearing the completion of the project. So upon the completion of that project, the bus routes that were previously detoured to go around the tunnel and go through Allentown and the Wabash Tunnel will go back through the Mount Washington Tunnel. Those bus routes are the 39, the 40, 41, 44, 51L, the Y series routes of the Y1, Y45, Y46, Y47, and the Y49. Our rail routes will continue to go back through the Mount Washington Tunnel as well. That's the blue, red, and the silver. The silver weekday routing will return back into town. The blue route will discontinue the midday service and return back to the previous schedule where it was operating in the morning and afternoon weekday peaks. And we implemented a subway local route to provide some additional service in the downtown area. That route will be discontinued at the completion of the project. We have multiple routes that will have some routing changes and bus stop changes at the waterfront location. Multiple routes that they're going to change the routing and the bus stop locations at the direction of the property owner at the waterfront. Our initial plan was to relocate the stops that were directly in front of the Target and the Giant Eagle there at the waterfront and relocate those stops out onto Waterfront Drive. Unfortunately, that plan is going to have to be modified and put on detour. The Borough of Homestead did not have time to plan or budget for the necessary improvements to make those stops ADA accessible. So those stops will not be implemented at the start of the service change. So the closest stop pair that previously was closest to the Target and the Giant Eagle, the closest stop pair is going to be out on the Amity Drive. So on the map here, you'll see these red X's where the proposed stops were on Waterfront Drive, and you'll see the stop locations at on the Amity there. The routes that are impacted are the 53, the 53L, the 57, 59, 64, and the 61D. So at the start of the service change, the 53 and the 53L, 57, and 59 will not have a routing detour. The stops on Waterfront Drive will just not be implemented. The 64 and the 61D will however have a routing detour at the start of the service change due to not being able to utilize the stops on Waterfront Drive. So on the let's go to the next one. So the 64 routing here on the map will match on the inbound and outbound coming off the Homestead Grace Bridge and getting into the waterfront and getting to Amity Drive, and then doing the Costco, what we call the Costco loop, and then go back to layover behind the waterfront storefronts where we have an agreed upon layover there. So the inbound and the outbound routing will be the same. And we'll also talk about the 61D. This will be the inbound and outbound routing for the 61D. Same thing as the 64 coming off the Homestead Grace Bridge and making its way to Amity Drive and doing the Costco loop and laying over behind the storefronts at the waterfront. We also have routing changes for the 54. So currently the Route 54 is on detour due to weight restrictions on the Heron Avenue Bridge. So that detour, I think we're doing slightly different than what we're currently doing the detour today, but that detour is being built into the service change, and a portion of that branch, that D branch routing, is shifting from Liberty Avenue and going to use Bigelow Boulevard, so that we can bypass that bridge that has that restriction. The Route 74 has some minor updates in the Squirrel Hill area. That's going to be Murray Avenue to Beacon Street to Shady Avenue. In today's current service, there's a difference between the weekday and the weekend routings. So with this updated routing, we'll be able to operate this route all 7 days of the week. So it'll be standardized throughout the week. We do have one route where we updated the travel time, or what we call the run times, and that's the 28X because of the new terminal there. We updated every day of the week new travel times for the 28X. We do have some frequency changes. The 53 on Saturday has a frequency improvement from 90 minutes to 80 minutes. The 53 on Sunday from 80 minutes to 70 minutes. And we do have some frequency changes on the 75. We have implemented a long and short variant of the Route 75. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this on the next slide, but we do have a long and a short variant. Each variant will operate at 30-minute frequency, but with the short variant, the trunk of the route between East Liberty and Southside Works, it will have a peak frequency of 15 minutes. So the main trunk of it will be very high frequency. The Y47 on Saturday is going from 70 minutes to 60 minutes. And here is a map of the Route 75. So we are implementing that short variant. It's gonna operate between the 5th Avenue ramp in East Liberty to Southside Works. And in that portion of the route, that Route 75 will operate every 15 minutes. We have some trip time changes. These are some minor shifts in the start and end times of trips. Daily changes is going to be the Route 82, the G2, and the P1. Weekday only changes is going to be the following routes: the 2, 6, 8, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 26, 27, 29, 31, 51, 52L, 56, 58, 61D, 93, G3, 01, 05, P7, and P76. And the following routes will have weekday and Saturday changes for trip time changes. It's the 91 and the 61B. The following routes will have Saturday changes for trip time changes. It's going to be the 1, the 11, the 61C, and the 67 and the 69. On Sunday only changes will be the 61A. For Saturday and Sunday weekend changes, it's going to be the 71A, 71C, and the 75. And that concludes my presentation today, and I will answer any questions that you may have this morning.
Do any committee members have any questions?
Philip, I have two.
Yes.
The first one relates to the schedule change announcement that we're in right now, related to the bus stops along Smithfield Street. Some of those have not been implemented yet because of the status of the bump outs. Can you give me an update on when those are expected to be completed?
I don't have that information today, but I will take that back to our team and discuss that with our transit amenities folks and get you an answer after the presentation today.
With regard to the tunnel completion work that will enable regular routing to begin, is that on schedule, or was it scheduled to be completed earlier than now?
It's my understanding that it will not be line up with the start of the service change at this time. I don't have an estimated date today, but I'll go back and talk to the team and see if we can get some updates on a projected opening date for that.
When was it originally scheduled to be completed? Do you know?
Good morning, Tom. This is Catherine. It was originally, we had always said October.
Okay.
Construction schedules can get kind of spicy as we get closer down to, there might be, I mean, I would say there'd be rain, but we're currently having no rain. So we had always said October. We were extremely hopeful that it would come together with the schedule change, but our plan was in the back pocket to have detours ready in case it was not done. So it's not that it's got a month for a deadline. That was the best way for us to plan it. And if I'm wrong, I'm going to look at Amy Silberman, and do we have an update on bump outs, or should we get something written and convey that out? Yeah. Okay. And so October was when we said, and so October is what we're planning for.
Pretty close then.
Yes.
Pretty close.
Thank you. Thanks, Philip.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Bobby. Can folks hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Phil, for this update. I just had a few questions. One with the 28X, I've heard that with the construction at the airport, that the routing for the 28X will take longer than previously. I looking at the map, I can't really tell if it'll take longer to walk, into the terminal and so on. I'm wondering, with the schedule, what the schedule changes look like for the 28X, and if there's any conversations about how to actually make that ride faster for folks who are getting to the airport, because I hope that you can correct me here. My impression is that's actually going to take longer. So that's my first question.
As far as travel time to the airport, there was a lot of added running time based on traffic conditions that we've evaluated. So the on-time performance should improve with that routing. So there is additional travel time built into the route. But as far as the customer impacts at the terminal, once you're dropped off at the stop, you're right there at the landside terminal to go through security and get to the gate. So as far as the operations at the airport, it's not necessarily an added travel time to the customers. The added travel time is mainly for internal operations. There's an additional travel time to get to and from our layover locations, but that's generally not seen on the customer facing schedule, because that's built into the schedule for our operations and getting over to the layover locations. So from a customer perspective, should be fairly seamless as far as getting picked up and dropped off at the airport. It's more direct. The customer won't have to take the train at the airport to get from the landside to the airside terminal, and vice versa, whether you're getting picked up or dropped off. So it should be a little bit more quick from getting off the airplane, getting over to and getting over to the bus stop.
So from the customer perspective, are there more or fewer trips running for the 28X, and is that due to the construction, or is this due to the internal scheduling adjustment?
There will be fewer trips to the airport because of the updated schedule, due to the updated time to get to the deadhead, to the layover, and vice versa back to the stop. Yeah, so there will be some additional less trips.
Sorry, so I didn't mean to spend so much time on this, but are there any plans with the construction at the airport to make the stop location to place that stop in so that the travel times are shorter, so that there can be more trips? That's, I guess, my question.
Good morning, Member Fan. This is Catherine. Philip is doing his best on the schedule stuff. As far as infrastructure, one of the problems we have for the 28X is with the way that we operate the frequency. It'll end up being anywhere from, I want to say, 37 to 39-minute frequency. Optimally, we should be getting out there every 15 to 20 minutes. And with the layover location we have at the airport, it is farther away from the terminal, and put together with the turns, et cetera, on the airport property, the fact that we can't sit there because of TSA rules, the opportunity for us to try to get a layover location closer to the terminal is not there. But if we're running a faster frequency, then we're going to be able to get folks out there quickly enough that that extra trip time from the terminal out to layover and back can be absorbed within the cycle time, if that makes any sense. So the goal for us, and ideally February, if we're looking at adding frequency February or June, would be to take the frequency up enough that it smooths out the schedule so there's a faster trip from downtown to the terminal out to layovers for our operators, and that the frequency is consistent enough that there's more service getting out to the airport.
Okay, thank you. I mean, the layover location isn't directly PRT, related to PRT. It seems more related to the airport, but I just wanted to ask.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And I just had a follow-up question with the presentation. The waterfront stop changes seem quite disruptive for riders. Do you know how many riders will be inconvenienced by this change?
Amy has some additional information on that.
Good morning, Board Member Fan. Yeah, we have about 400 weekday riders using the 2 stops that will be eliminated with the October changes, and more than that on Saturdays. So it is a very substantial bus stop impact for us.
Gotcha. And so is this change is irreversible, it sounds like?
Nothing is
I'm curious about the
irreversible,
conversation.
especially in the world
Mhm.
of buses. But it is a private road, and the property owner has asked us to vacate our bus stops on the private road. So we will be serving the closest by public road, which is Amity, as Philip mentioned. And we will continue to have conversations with that property owner regarding any future ability to replace those bus stops. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my main concern with these are just, it seems like loss of ridership opportunities for both, for both, both the scenarios I was asking about. My last question is just related to the presentations themselves. I find that when I see information as uh, trip time changes that are occurring for routes, it doesn't really tell me much. So, even if there was just an indicator that the average headway is increasing, the average headway is decreasing, or the total number of trips is increasing or decreasing, or it's the same, and the only thing that are changing is the times, start times, end times, etc. That would be really helpful. I know that adds some amount of work on your end, so but I would appreciate that if there's just an indicator.
Yes. So trip time changes. It's not related to frequency changes. It's if say a trip today is starting at 6 p.m., but now it's going to start at 6:01 or 6:02. So it's a minor shift in the time. We have a new module within our scheduling software called Minbus, and what it has the capability of shifting trips to allow for improved blocking of trips. And it helps us reduce the number of peak buses that we need to utilize in our schedule. So it will shift trips by a minute or two, depending on the parameters we set up, to allow those trips to be blocked together. So it's really just shifting of those trips by a minute or two, and it falls under that category of trip time changes. But yes, I will make that more clear in future presentations that. So it's a separate category compared to frequency changes. So I hope that answered your question, but we'll look at seeing what we could do to put some definitions on the slide to make that clear in the future.
Okay, so the only frequency change, I guess I'm confused because you reported on the frequency changes that are improving, but I didn't see any about the frequency changes that are getting longer, so to speak. So thank you.
Any other committee members? Any board members? Have any questions? If not, that ends the agenda for this committee today. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
This meeting is adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is
Aye.
adjourned.
Hi, everyone. This is Emma Schucare. I would like to call to order the meeting of the Finance Committee. Would all members of the Finance Committee please identify yourselves?
Senator Williams.
Bobby Fan.
Other board members?
Tom
Tia
Bergender.
McClinney.
Chris Bursalis.
Stephanie Turman.
Jen Liptak.
The minutes for the last meeting have already been circulated. Unless there are any updates or revisions, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve these minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting minutes are approved. Now we will hear a funding update from Dominica Brown.
Good morning, members. I am not Dominica, but we are wearing the same color suit. So there you go. We're going to start texting each other in the morning to make sure we're not wearing the same thing. Well, so this is a really great funding update, which we have today. It is the best bad solution that we could have gotten coming. Well, the best bad solution, I suppose, that we could have had coming out of this year. Today, we will be presenting to the Finance Committee a budget amendment moving over capital funding into operations. On the operation side, the good part, this means no reduction in service and no fare changes this year or next year. It's difficult to overstate the value to this because once service is gone, it's extremely difficult to bring it back. Once a fare change goes through, it's almost as Dr. Bruce Allis had asked us about, we don't see ourselves rolling fares back. Fares go up and they do not come back down. In an area with the 10th highest fares in the country, I think avoiding a fare increase is important. Critically, this also means no modification to our van-based services. So for the thousands of people who get to work, get to dialysis, get to grocery stores on our van-based services throughout Allegheny County, this is no reduction in service to them. What does this mean? It means that projects we had teed up for capital improvements in fiscal 26 will not happen. Some of them will. All of our safety projects will happen. All of our mission critical projects will happen. Things with certain funding requirements or funding matches will. But what we would have liked to have done this year in capital will be pushed out. We do not have a snapshot yet of what that looks like over 5 years. It's a lot of cascading and moving this to move that. It's more than just a little Gantt chart. But today you will hear a presentation about what this means for the budget, what a status quo service level budget looks like. And we are just really happy to be bringing this to your consideration as opposed to asking you to vote on cataclysmic service reductions and fare increases. And with that, I will turn it over to Dominica.
All righty. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Catherine. Good morning, committee and board members. So quickly, I just want to do a review of what has occurred and gotten us to this point. So many of you have seen that SEPTA made a request to PennDOT to be able to use their capital for operations as a one-time kind of stopgap because of the potential service reductions, fare increases, and in their case, they had a budget that was not balanced. We decided to do the same, and hopefully with the board's approval, we'll be able to move forward with this plan. This plan would allow us to use up to $106.7 million of our state capital dollars for operating purposes. And with that, we intend to not have a fare increase or any service reductions for the next 2 years. There will be some postponements of some capital projects. However, no safety critical projects will be impacted in this process. Last year, we budgeted a $50 million deficit that we plan to use our deferred revenue or reserves to fill that gap. As of now, the unaudited amount that we've actually used in reserves is about $10 million. And so we're happy to, and then you'll see later on that we are planning to have that increased reserves to be able to use to allow us to move through these next 2 years, in addition to the capital dollars that we're able to use for operating. Some of the reasons that we've had that the budget was so much higher than what our actual was primarily due to wages and benefits and other expenses. Wages and benefits was due to vacancies. I would like to say also that because of our hiring freeze, we did see some savings there. Also, in other expenses, there were some software opportunities, and with that, we saw some savings as well. And the other items are not as large, but they all contributed to parts of that savings that we saw. Also, whenever we did our initial projections over the 10 years for 2026, we were expecting a $100 million deficit. Since then, as we've looked at the budget and we found some of these savings opportunities, we are expecting that we were looking at a 94 million, so about a $6 million reduction in the expected budget deficit amount from our initial projections to now through that process. So as we look at a 5-year outlook and what that means for PRT with this consideration of using capital for operating funds, we would use about $78 million of capital funds in fiscal year 2026, and the remaining $32 million of those additional dollars in 2027. So as you can see in the pie chart, the gray is the one-time state capital funds that we're able to use. The yellow are years that we're using our deferred revenue or reserves. And so in 2029, with 3 months still in the bank, we'd have a deficit of $86.9 million. And in 2030, a deficit of $154.6 million. This pie chart is our full revenue and subsidies for 2026, fiscal year 2026. The total budget amount would be $572.2 million. 51% of our total budget would be state operating assistance. And you can see that we have about 13% in capitalizations that we'd be using as well. And just about 1% of interest from our deferred operating revenue, and 10% passenger revenue, and about 14%, that gold slice, is our one-time state and local capital usage for operating. We wanted to show the comparison between our fiscal year 2025 and then this current fiscal year 2026 amended budget. Passenger fares, it may stand out to you all. It definitely stands out to me, showing a lower amount, but I don't know if anyone remembers throughout the past year, we haven't quite met the projected amount of passenger revenues for that we budgeted. So we reduced that. However, our contracted services, which usually goes into that main line whenever we're presenting on the financials, is increasing from last year. But we adjusted the amount of revenue expected for passenger fares for 2026 to align with the audited numbers from 24 and what we saw happen in 25 as well. So when we look at just our earned revenues, passenger fares are about 61% of that. Access is 13%, and contracted services is 17% of the total $74 million. So with our subsidies, capitalizations, and reserves, our state operating assistance and our county match are expected to be the same as of now as last year. If there are any changes with that, we would come back. But as of now, we were notified that our state operating assistance would remain flat. Thus, our local match does as well. Our you see the difference from last year is that we budgeted that 50 million to use in reserves, and we are not using any reserves in fiscal year 2026 due to that one-time state capital amount of 106.6, and then the local match as well of $3.5 million. You see that reduction because we won't use that full amount this year. Some of it will be used in 2027. So our total subsidy and capitalizations and reserves amounts is 498.1 million. And this pie again just shows the percentage of each of those categories for our subsidies, with the state operating assistance being 58% and our one-time state and local capital amounts being 16%. When we consider our expenses for 2026, wages and salaries are projected to go up. And last year, we had a pretty flat budget. A lot of the reason for that was due to the one-time pension reduction that we saw last year. As I mentioned then, it was returning this year, and it is returning this year. And so that's why you see that jump in pension and employee expenses. And one of the things that I mentioned earlier was that we found some opportunities for budget reductions and savings and some of our line items, materials and supplies being one of them, other expenses, I'm sorry, not the purchase services and access. And so you'll see those changes as well compared to last year. But we are still we have about a $30 million increase from last year's budget to this proposed amended budget. And this pie chart shows, our expense of our costs. I mean, as we all know, our greatest expense is our human capital, who we invest in very much. And so we'll see wages and salaries of about 38% and other employee benefits of about 27%. And our pension is 8%. Are there any questions on the operating budget prior to moving to capital?
Yes, I have a question. As a result of receiving the funding from the state capital, and you're going to use in excess of $70 million of that for 2026, does that mean you're not going to draw down reserves in 2026 as you had to in 2025?
Yes, it does. So we have not budgeted to use any reserves in 2026. We don't have any plan to use reserves until next year in 2027.
And that's because you're not getting as much money from the state capital fund in 2027, right?
Yes, so our current gap in our budget still exists, but the dollar amount that we're able to take from capital, along with our other matches and other federal opportunity we have for capitalizing, it doesn't fill the gap for both years. It fills all of 2026 and then about a quarter of 2027's gap. And so we're able to use reserves to fill the remainder of that gap. And one of the good things about us not spending all of the reserves that we budgeted to spend in 24 is that, we're able to use that a little, less painfully and fill that gap in 2027.
I know you're going to talk about the state capital funding, but can I jump the gun and ask you this is a phrase that I wasn't aware of before SEPTA made their request and subsequently PRT made its request. This state capital fund, is this something that we have on our books, or is this something that the state holds as a result of appropriation? How does it work?
So each year we are allocated operating funds and capital funds from the state. The capital funds, so I don't know if anyone remembers, back in June, we presented an operating and capital budget. So the initial capital budget that we presented, those dollars are the dollars that we'll be using to fill this operating gap. So yes, they are dollars that we are usually allocated, and we're using them instead of for capital for operating purposes.
All right, I focused on the operating money that we got, and that was based on the number of trips we run and the number of miles we run and so on and so forth, right?
Yes.
And I guess capital is based on the same formula?
It's not the exact same formula. There is a formula. It's a little more complex. But there is a formula that determines what we receive, and that's based on several things that were written into the code in prior years. I'm not exactly familiar with all of the details for capital.
So the capital, both the operating and capital funds that we receive from the state are not dependent on appropriations, unlike what we were hoping to get but didn't get this year, right?
Yes, so every year, the dollar amount that we are allocated in operating, we are held harmless and guaranteed to receive that the following year. So the way that the Pennsylvania, the Public Transit Trust Fund is funded is with sales and use tax dollars. And there are some other pots of dollars that go into that as well. Most of it is used for operating and then for us. And then we have some for capital. So those dollars are guaranteed to us on the operating side each year. On the capital side, it changes each year, but they are outside of the budget essentially, in the sense that the discussion around the budget earlier in the year was that we'd have an increase in the amount of sales and use tax that is allocated to that pot. And that's what has not happened, that increase. But what already existed still exists.
Thank you.
Okay.
Lindsay,
I have a question or two if Tom is finished. Okay, what, if any, effect did the hiring freeze and or vacancies have on our service? Do we know that?
So the hiring freeze was not for operators. We did continue to hire operators and essential employees. Some of the positions that we considered not as essential or that could hold off, or particularly in administration where we could have someone else kind of cover a role if it wasn't dire, then we held off on those. But any essential positions that were needed, we did still hire. But we did have several vacancies, so that still allowed us to, I think it was what, $13 million under our budgeted amount.
Thank you for that clarification. And then with the change in, asking for the permission under Act 89 to spend capital money to fund operations, are we in a status quo for service for next year and the next, and probably into year 2? What does that mean for system redesign? And does that get put back on the table?
Catherine's going to come up and answer that.
Okay.
Good morning, Senator. We are in a no service reductions situation for the budget. So not removing any hours of service. We did see a lot of conversation on the SEPTA lawsuit around if there is a bank account, so what we have for our reserves. Are we a piggy bank and we're supposed to sit on that forever? Should we be getting that out the door as much as possible for service? We usually plan for about a 3 to 4% expansion in service. We haven't had a usual year for 5 years now. So, I mean, what does that mean? We will be bringing to you the bus line redesign, which still factored in about a 3% expansion each year. So what we will do is grow as though we had stable funding. That sounds really awful, but that's probably the best way to explain it. I think we also, the folks who rely on us, the businesses that, that do business with us, the schools which are growing, our local economy, I think we have an obligation not just to continue to do the exact same level of service and move it around. I think we have an obligation to make sure that our tax dollars that we get in and we're stewards of are going out in the most successful way. So I just mentioned that potentially doing an improvement for service out to the airport, but we have a lot of places where we could remove service. About 5% of our service in the past X years has been taken out because of hiring. We're fully hired up now. So we have an opportunity to make late night improvements and weekend improvements and get out to, I don't know, hospitals in Natrona, just an idea.
I may have been bugging you about that since 2018.
Right. Yep. So we do have that opportunity. again, if we just, I don't know that it's feasible for us. I think definitely not for a region, for us to sit here for the next 2 years and say, we're just going to continue to do the exact same thing. Now, the burden is absolutely on your staff to look at continued efficiencies. Realistically, if we're taking things and moving them on capital, we have to make sure that we are staffed between our strategic plan and what we're going to get to, that the things that we said we're going to do, we're actually going to execute. But, you know, we have seen what happens the longer we wait for things. I mean, if you've been catching the rail and your catenary has come down because we haven't been able to afford to take the whole line down and fix it, it's not sustainable. It's not acceptable for our folks. So look for a capital budget that includes funding for rail cars in year number 5. It's going to be a big number. Look for a capital plan that includes replacing our Manchester facility because that needs to be replaced. We can't offer state-of-the-art training. And look for service plans that include improvements which are needed to get service out there. We're not saying going ham and adding, does anyone say that anymore? I'm so sorry, but not going crazy and adding a whole bunch of service, but where we know we have bad frequencies, where we know that it's a 67-minute thing, we'll be bringing to you plans to address that. But yes, on bus line redesign.
Okay, great. So when can the board, and I know a lot of this has changed not too long ago. So when can the board expect conversations about bus line redesign? And will that potentially look different than when it was looking like when we paused it? Like, will that be updated, or will we go back to kind of the same plan, or will things change within the redesign?
So it will be updated, given that when we bring it back to the board, it'll be the second phase of this. So
Okay.
Everything which we'd presented in the first phase, the staff, so we broadly had half our staff working on, funding crisis and half the planning staff working on the bus line redesign. So we had like a really happy group that was growing stuff and a group that's like, oh my God, the world is ending, but now it's all happy again. So you will see modifications on that, but you'll see that because we've had the time to go back and get, to incorporate the feedback that we've gotten from folks. But it's just as modified as what we're getting for the feedback coming up. I don't know when we have it slated for a board presentation. I'm looking at Amy. Definitely by the end of the year, you will see that. We're hopeful that we can get you a full capital, more robust, I wouldn't say full, but a more fleshed out capital plan, ideally in October. So the board can see what this reality looks like.
Okay, great. And as a new board member, maybe some time for a board to get refreshed on some of that stuff that may have been
Yes.
conversations that I missed prior to getting on the board.
Yes.
Would be helpful. So thank you.
Sorry,
Thank
this
you.
is Bobby.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for your for this presentation update, and obviously we're all relieved that there's a short-term solution for now around funding. My question was actually to follow up on bus line redesign. When bus line redesign was put on the table, I believe PRT stated that the redesign needs a 5% funding increase and stable funding projection for 5 years to make it worthwhile to implement. So seeing as we're still in a somewhat uncertain phase as far as funding, I'm wondering if it'd be wise to continue tabling that discussion for now, because I can only imagine of either a bus line redesign that does not match, realistic projections of what our funding will be in the future, or a bus line redesign that is really cutting away service.
Yeah, that's a great question. Amy Silberman back again. So what we will plan to do, we have a lot of moving pieces here in the last week or two with this update. So what we are planning to do, as Catherine mentioned, we have been working on and actually recently completed our draft 2.0 of bus line redesign internally. What we will do now is work with our senior team to then set up a board workshop to review draft 2.0 bus line redesign and talk about timelines, what would it look like, and how, make sure that we then plan for a board committee presentation, hopefully in November. If not, maybe October. I think November is probably more realistic, so that we can all, publicly be on the same page about what is a timeline for bus line redesign. Are we going to advance bus line redesign, and when, given all of the items that you just mentioned?
Is there a particular like time frame, such as, you know, the contract for the firm or whatever, that is pushing it further up, you know, even with the state funding uncertainty?
No. So the current consulting firms that we have working on bus line redesign, they are under a planning services contract that does expire next month, but we have a new general planning services contract that was board approved in June, and we are finalizing contracts there. And we do have firm overlap between the old contract and the new contract to enable us to, you know, keep key team members who've been part of that project planning involved.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Any other questions? All righty, so we'll move on to the capital budget. This capital budget also compares last year's capital budget to our 2026, or you can see that we are still using federal dollars, an increased amount of federal dollars, some of which that 9.9 million is an FTA grant that we received for zero emission buses. So we will still purchase those buses this year. But for our state, there is a pretty significant reduction. That 106.5, that's not the same dollar amount that I mentioned earlier. That's the difference between fiscal year 25 and 26. But it's also very close to the amount that we're going to be able to use in-state dollars for capital. But you can see just that reduction in our usual state dollars for capital from last year to this year, and it is for that reason. The local amounts that we're seeing for match correspond with the dollar amounts that we are using in our capital budget. And that brings us down to a total capital budget of 57.9 million, almost $58 million. 57% of this capital budget is our federal dollars, 41% are state, and then 2% are capital dollars. And when we consider our expenses, our debt service remains the same. We will still meet our debt service obligations, and our revenue vehicle replacements, that 10.3, that's the federal grant that I mentioned for the buses with the local match for those buses. And then our fixed skyway improvements, that is for our Panhandle Bridge. So there are some federal dollars associated with that grant, and we will move forward with that and still match that project with the appropriate state capital dollars in order to allow that to continue. And the final support program is our automatic fare refresh, which is ongoing and very important, and make sure that we're able to, or ensuring that we are able to continue to collect our fare revenue. This pie is just showing our the expenses for each category, the percentage of the total capital budget amount. So with this resolution, we are requesting to adopt a balanced fiscal year 2026 operating budget of $572.2 million and a balanced fiscal year 26 capital budget of $57.9 million, which are included in Exhibit A and Exhibit B. Also, our local match certification authorizations are included. So if there are no further questions, I respectfully request that the board approves this resolution. The committee approves this resolution for the full board.
This
I
is
have
Emma. I have a question.
Sorry, go ahead, Emma.
Oh, okay, thanks. When do we expect the federal dollars to be dispersed? Like, do we have any of that money in hand, or is that projected to be dispersed at some point in 2026?
So the way that our federal grants work is once we expend those dollars, we invoice, and generally once we submit that invoice, we're able to draw down the funds within 3 days.
Okay.
My question was to understand what within the capital budget we are delaying as a result of the action that we are forced to take because of not having that money and redirecting that money into operating. I think it might be helpful for board members to see some sort of list or slide that shows what we were planning to do with capital dollars, what is being pushed off, what is staying on for safety and other things, and what those costs may look like. And I know you're, once again, you just got that you are doing all of this, so I understand that we don't have it now, but I think having some understanding of what exactly is being pushed off, what we're still funding so we can draw down those matching, and then what those costs might be in year 2 or 3 or 4, like what that looks like.
I'm going to step in on this one, Senator Williams. This is Amy Silverman. So we are anticipating right now providing a detailed committee presentation of exactly what project monies we are shifting where for your October committee meetings.
Right.
What we can commit to right now is that no safety critical projects will be deferred. So anything that was safety critical, we have enough current cash in the bank to continue cash flowing anything safety critical, in addition to the Panhandle and AFCS projects that Dominica mentioned, to carry us through this fiscal year. Basically, what we are doing with any, or will be showing you next month with any fiscal 26 dollars that are not budgeted in what you've seen today, is taking past capital budget dollars that have not been fully expended on other projects. So that might mean pausing other projects, that might mean canceling other older projects, et cetera, to ensure that we can keep moving everything safety critical forward. It's a little bit more complicated than just looking at 1 year, because we really need to look at our cash flow as we head through fiscal 27 through 30 as well. So we want to make sure that we do that well and don't provide something quickly that we then have to amend 2 months from now as we really took a deeper dive look at it. So we can commit that nothing safety critical will be deferred, everything that's safety critical, or, and for the most cases, anything that's already under construction, things like that will all continue to advance. We have enough capital in the bank from past years' capital budget projects that have not been fully expended to be able to float along this year.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I would like to entertain a motion to advance this resolution to the full board for next week's meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Hearing a motion and a second, do we have any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Against? Motion carries.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you.
And I think we now kick it back to you, Dominica.
Oh.
Okay. I have to go back to this resolution. Okay, so the second resolution that I have is an authorization to extend and amend the agreement for utility consulting and administrative support services. In June 25, 2021, PRT's board authorized an award to Eric Ryan Corp. For utility consulting and administrative services. These services include monitoring utility bills, recommending utility cost reductions, and providing a utility database, assisting with utility procurements, and et cetera. There was a 3-year term with 2 option years. 1 option year has been exercised. And so this resolution would request to exercise the 2nd option year through August 31, 2026, with an increase not to exceed amount of $330,000 and $200. $330,200. So if there are no questions, I respectfully request that the committee recommend this resolution to the full board.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
So with this contract, as someone who hears from constituents a lot about rising utility costs and the impacts on budgeting, do we have any information about, like, because it says service can include, recommending utility cost reductions. Do we have any idea of what those recommendations over the first part of the contract were? Did they save us any money? How much money did they save us? Was that only a part of what the contract was being used? I'm looking at like the savings that they may have generated for us that offsets the cost for the contract.
So I can get you the dollar amounts of the savings. I don't have that right now, but I do know that some of the services that they provide is exactly that. They are able to negotiate with the providers in a different manner than we can, and also monitor our bills in a more detailed way that we're not necessarily doing internally, so that whenever our rates increase, they will notify and say, hey, let's make sure that we lock in on a lower rate or things of that nature in order to have those savings there. There are some things that we are exploring with this company as well as our sustainability group around our utility costs that have not yet come to an end, or exploration, that is. But so far, this group does seem to be beneficial. Another service that they provide for us is that all of our utility bills do go to them. As everyone is aware, we have several locations with several different utilities and several different utility companies because of where some of our locations are located. So it assists with the organization and reporting and monitoring of that in a more detailed manner than we would normally do internally.
So I imagine that this contract started because there was some lack of capacity internally to manage these utility costs.
I was not here when it started, but my understanding is that there was opportunity for savings there.
How long has this entity, is this the first time we're renewing this entity's contract?
Excuse me, Senator Williams, Mike Setcher here. I just wanted to also clarify the other portion of this contract that I think is critical and we do not have internal capacity for is they also help us manage all of our various utility bills and what we pay and where we pay because of all the various properties and facilities we operate across the county. So a part of this is also providing us assistance with managing and making sure that we pay our utility bills and that they're properly metered, et cetera.
Okay. Is this their first time having this contract be renewed, or have they had this contract in the past renewed?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can find out. I'm not sure of that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Bobby. This is just actually to follow up on Senator Williams' questions, and this is not specifically to question this specific contract, but I am curious, as far as procurement, because you earlier, Dominica, you presented on various cost savings that the agency has undertaken. So I'm curious if there's a decision-making process around whether to extend contracts on option years versus going out to bid for a cheaper contract for any of the contracts, like what the thought process is.
Yes, there is.
Hi, sorry. I'm back. So we do anytime that we're exercising or considering exercising an option year, even before the funding crisis, our procurement team always works with the user group to assess if that's the most cost-effective option. It often is because you typically have, kind of prices locked in even for option years. Whereas when you go out with new solicitations, it's open season. Everyone can provide new rates and much higher rates typically. But that is an assessment that we do anytime that we're looking at and proposing to the board or board committee exercising an option year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Absent any further discussion, can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Hearing both, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Hi.
Opposed? Motion carries. And I think for the last item on the Finance Committee agenda, we turn back to Dominica for the financial statements from July and August.
All righty. So this is our bar chart that shows our monthly passenger revenues. Every summer, we expect to see a decline in our ridership revenues, primarily due to schools and colleges being out, and that's what we're seeing here in July. And you see it starting to creep back up for August. And when you look back throughout the years, we see that dip every year. But revenue, based on what we're projecting now, is where we expect it to be. So that's a good thing. Our July revenues for the month of July 2025 are about $400,000 above the budgeted amount. That is primarily due to interest income. The lower fares and other income kind of offset each other. Expenses for the month of July are about $200,000 below, $8.3 million below budgeted, and that is because every expense category is below our budgeted amount, with the primary amount being all other, and that is due to some software costs. Subsidies for the month of July are about $200,000 below our budgeted amount, and that is due to a lower interest on our state operating reserves. The August 2025 revenue results are about $200,000 above our budgeted amount. That again is primarily due to interest income, with fares and other income being about $200,000 below our budgeted amount. Expenses for the month of August are $2.8 million below our budgeted amount, with every expense being under budget with the exception of all other, and that's again due to software costs. And our subsidies for the month of August are about $300,000 below, and that is again due to lower interest on our state operating reserves. For year-to-date revenues, August, we'll see a $700,000 actual above budgeted, and again, that is due to interest income. Expenses for the year-to-date as of August are $11 million below budgeted, and that is because every expense category is below our budgeted amount. Subsidies for year-to-date in August are about $500,000 below what we budgeted, and again, that is due to a reduction or lower interest income on our state operating reserves. PRT began the month of August with operating reserves of $375 million. There were cash inflows of $39.8 million, cash outflows of $45.5 million, and the month of August was ended with $369.3 million in operating reserves. And that completes my report. Are there any questions?
All right, if there are no questions, that concludes the Finance Committee meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Meeting adjourned.
Good morning. I will now call to order the Performance Oversight Committee. Other committee members, will you please identify yourselves?
Tom Burgunder.
Will the remainder of board members identify themselves?
Chris Bursellis.
Ariane Abney.
Senator Williams.
Emma Schuker.
Jen Liptak.
The July 17th, 2025 Performance Oversight Committee meeting minutes have been circulated. If there are no questions, I ask for a motion to approve these minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second? Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion carries. We will now have a presentation of proposed resolutions, beginning with Justin Cava.
Thank you, and good morning, committee members. I have one item today for your consideration. This was a sole source procurement. These are for blower auxiliary inverters. These are utilized in the maintenance and repair of PRT's LRV fleet, mainly the propulsion system. What this part does is that it uses forced air to cool our propulsion system on our LRV vehicles. There are 2 inverters per LRV. There's 152 per fleet. We purchased 80 back in 2017 for half of the fleet, and we would like to continue to purchase 80 more. Due to the age and to ensure the safe functioning of the LRV propulsion system, we have determined that it's necessary to enter into an agreement to procure 8 blower auxiliary inverters. Recommendation, the sole source contract be awarded to ABB Incorporated and the amount not to exceed $3,764,999. The contract duration will be over 18 months with no renewal options. Any questions?
Do any board members have questions for Mr. Cava?
Okay, subject to any further questions, I respectfully request this bid be taken to the full board for approval.
Do I have a motion to move this to the full board?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any against? Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you.
We will now have a presentation by Mr. Mike Setra for authorization.
Good morning, Committee Chair McClenny, other committee members and board members. This first resolution I have for your consideration this morning would authorize PRT to enter into a new lease agreement with PennDOT for the Manchester lot site. PennDOT owns an approximately 5-acre parcel of land underneath State Route 65 between Chateau Street and Beaver Avenue across the street from our Manchester heavy maintenance facility. Since February 2001, PRT has been in a 25-year lease agreement for use of the site for employee parking and patron park and ride purposes. The agreement is no cost to PRT, but PRT is responsible for maintaining the property. And I'll try to show you a couple visuals here. Here's just an aerial view where you see it. You can't exactly see it, but where that arrow is pointing, it runs under State Route 65 there. And then you can see across the street with the red dot is our Manchester facility. And then the next view here is just a street view, as you can see it from Chateau Street, the portion of the lot that we utilize for employee parking. In 2009, the agreement was amended to permit PRT to sublease a portion of the property no longer needed for park and ride purposes to third parties. Currently, and I'll show you the next slide here, which shows a view of this area of the lot. It's basically broken into two lots separated by a travel lane. But this portion of the property is currently being subleased to Mascaro Construction Company for employee and contractor parking while Mascaro completes Alcosan's North End plant expansion project. So that's been a project going on for a few years here, but working with our municipal partners at Alcosan, we were able to provide them some parking capacity for the contractor here with the space. Our lease agreement with PennDOT to utilize the site is set to expire on January 31st, 2026. As I noted, we continue to utilize half of the lot for Manchester employee parking, and we continue to sublease the other portion at Mascaro, and also have the ability, if we ever wanted to, if we ever would serve it again, to use it for continue to use it for park and ride patron purposes. With the lease expiring, PennDOT does, they do not do amendments on 25-year leases, so they do require us to enter into a new lease agreement. So we have negotiated a new lease agreement for continued use of the site, again, at no cost to PRT, but ongoing with our obligation to maintain it for a 10-year period that would begin on February 1st, 2026 and end on January 31st, 10 years from now. So subject to any member questions, I respectfully request that the Performance Oversight Committee recommend this resolution authorizing PRT to enter into this new lease agreement with PennDOT to the full board for approval.
I have two questions. First of all, I'm wondering, do we receive revenue from the sublease that we enter into?
We do not receive revenue, but we did have them make significant improvements to the lot as condition for use. So before they were using it, and because a piece of the lot was unutilized, we were running into issues with motorcycles racing because it's a big lot empty. So we had them install permanent security fencing, gating equipment, et cetera. So we'll have the benefit of that after the sublease is completed.
Is PRT considering moving its operations from Manchester to another location?
Yes, we are, Member Bergener, and that's why we I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that in my presentation. That is why we negotiated a 10-year lease versus the standard PennDOT 25-year lease.
So if we move within the 10-year period, what effect will that have on the lease and our obligations under the lease?
So we would continue to have responsibility for the property through 10 years, but we can work with PennDOT to seek permission to assign the lease to another entity. So if we did move and another entity acquired, our current site, we could, I anticipate we would be able to work with PennDOT and any new owner to assign that lease if it's before the 10 years.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Sure.
Do any other board members have questions? Hearing none, I ask for a motion to move this forward next week.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any against? Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, this next resolution that I have for the committee's consideration would authorize PRT to enter into an interagency cooperation agreement with the city of Pittsburgh to support the city's completion of its planned Liberty Avenue Highway Safety Improvement Project, which is a mouthful, so we've been calling it the HSIP for short around here. The city project aims to increase vehicle and pedestrian safety in the Strip District. Work on the project at Liberty Avenue and 26th Street would occur on and near PRT's 26th Street East Busway ramp, and it will include new bump outs, new pedestrian crosswalks with ADA compliant ramps, new signal poles, and new signal infrastructure. In order to complete the project, however, the city does require access to a portion of our ramp property, approximately 4,321 square feet, for the city's designated contractor to complete the improvements. And then once the improvements are completed, for the city and its designated contractors to be able to access same to maintain them, including the new signal infrastructure. And I have some visuals this meeting. Here, just this slide here just shows a couple aerial views of our ramp, and the area shaded in green shows the area of impact where the work and the improvements would take place. And then this next slide here is just a couple street level views showing both if you were entering the ramp and if you were exiting the ramp from the busway. And again, with the area of work, the area of impact highlighted in green. Subject to PRT board and city council approval, PRT and city representatives have negotiated this proposed cooperation agreement that would provide the construction access to the city's contractor via a license agreement, and also provide the city and its designated employees and contractors that future access to maintain the improvements. Subject to any member questions, I'd respectfully request that the committee recommend this resolution to the full board for approval.
Do any board members have questions? Hearing none, I ask for a motion to move this to the full board.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think my mic is just low.
Aye.
Okay. Might be me. Any against? Motion carries.
Thank you. Sticking with the interagency cooperation agreement theme, this next resolution that I have for the committee's consideration would authorize PRT to enter into a cooperation agreement with the Borough of Ingram to support the borough's completion of its planned Ingram Avenue improvement project. Much like the city project, this project aims to increase vehicle and pedestrian safety along Ingram Avenue. Work at the Ingram Avenue and East Prospect Avenue intersection near PRT's West Busway property will include a new pedestrian crosswalk with ADA compliant ramps. In order to complete this project, the borough requires access to a relatively small portion of PRT property, approximately 82 square feet of property, for their contractor to complete the improvements. And then again, similar to the city agreement, post-construction access to maintain the improvements. And I'll again just show a couple visuals here. This is an aerial view. You'll see there's two areas there. We own one adjacent to our West Busway ramp there. The other, we have some existing signaling there where they need some access to. And this next slide just shows a couple aerial views of both of those relatively small areas where they need access during construction and to maintain the future ramp improvements. Again, subject to PRT board and borough council approvals, the interagency cooperation agreement here would provide them with that construction and post-construction maintenance access, subject to indemnification, other protections for PRT and coordinating with PRT if any work would have an impact on our West Busway or adjacent transit operations. Subject to any member questions, I would respectfully request that the committee recommend this resolution to the full board for approval.
Do any board members have questions? Hearing none, I ask for a motion to move this to the full board.
So moved.
So moved.
Oops, second.
All right, I think I turned up my mic, so just in case I've been having y'all repeat anything, I hear okay now. Any against? I'm sorry. All in favor? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries.
Thank you. And this last resolution that I have for the committee's consideration this morning would authorize PRT to enter into an agreement for professional safety consulting and safety management support services. The contract services will actively assist PRT in its continued implementation of and operation of its federally and state required safety management system-based safety programs, including yearly and have become much more voluminous in recent years with some changes to federal law, updates to our public transit agency safety plan, our security and emergency preparedness plans, auditing of our safety and security programs and procedures, hazard and incident investigation and mitigation support, and safety and security training and exercises, including safety drills that we conduct on various portions of our system. RFP number 2504 for the services was publicly advertised, and 2 proposals were timely submitted to PRT by the due date on June 9th, 2025. 1 proposal from DSS Plus Transportation and 1 proposal from K&J Safety and Security Consulting Services. An evaluation committee consisting of representatives from Agency Innovation Services, Legal and Corporate Services, Human Resources, and our Finance Division was convened to evaluate the proposal. As detailed more fully in the summary of resolution in your committee packet, the evaluation committee rated K&J Safety as the highest rated of the 2 proposals submitted. K&J is a PA certified women veteran-owned DBE firm that specializes in and has been providing safety, security, and emergency management services and support to transit systems across the U.S. since 2002. K&J has strong experience providing such services to PRT and other transit agencies that have bus and rail transit modes similar to what PRT operates. Their project work plans, staff, and costs were rated favorably and found to meet the anticipated needs of PRT for the services. An agreement with an initial term of 5 years with the option to extend the agreement up to 2 additional years, and a total not to exceed amount of $1,645,325 to be allocated via task specific work orders is recommended for award to K&J Safety. I would note we are recommending a 5-year term here, and that a little longer than we typically recommend, and that is based on the audit cycles that we have to do for our state audit compliance to make sure we don't have any interruptions in the middle of of a cycle. But of course, we always maintain our ability to terminate for convenience, as we do with all of our contracts. Subject to any member questions, I would respectfully request that the Performance Oversight Committee recommend this resolution for the contract award to K&J Safety to the full board for approval.
Do any members have questions? Hearing none, can I get a motion to move this to the full board?
Motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Satra. We will now have a presentation by Mr. Eric Bilski on an authorization to extend and amend agreements for general architecture and engineering.
Good morning. This resolution seeks authorization to extend and amend agreement number R2106 for general architecture and engineering consulting services. This agreement is a pool agreement for a pool of firms to AECOM Technical Services, Inc., Michael Baker International, Inc., and Gannett Fleming, Incorporated. These agreements were awarded by the board in October of 2021. They were for a 4-year term. Their current term expires in December 31st of this year, and the original agreement amount not to exceed was $20 million. This resolution would extend or exercise the option year and extend it to the end of 2026. It would also increase the agreement amounts by $6 million for a new not to exceed a total of $26 million. This would allow PRT to provide continued consulting services to support our capital program and execute the existing projects that are currently in process. So with that, I respectfully request the committee to move this to the full board pending any questions.
Hello, this is Bobby. I have a question. So this is following up our earlier discussion about extending option years, and I see here the increase for this new renewal is increasing by $6 million to $26 million. Is it possible to receive any of the aforementioned sort of evaluations around the cost benefits of extending this contract versus having it come out to bid?
Well, as we do, and I think was mentioned previously, we do a cost benefit analysis and ensure that the pricing is fair and reasonable as part of our independent cost estimate. In order to exercise the option, that's standard practice to do that. In this case, with engineering services, these are professional services that are using hourly rates and so forth. So that cost analysis is evaluating hourly rates and making sure they're in line with market and industry. So with that said, to move forward with the option now allows the projects to continue as opposed to stopping work on them, while in the next, right after the first of the year, we'll be working to put out a new RFP to advertise for the services. And that at that time, we'll have a new slate of proposals coming in. I don't know if that answers it for you or.
Yeah, I'm mainly curious about, I know Michael Baker was a part of, I might be mistaken, a part of the bus line redesign. And I know they provide other services in this suite of services to PRT. But is it primarily design and, I assume it's separate from what AECOM and Gannett Fleming are providing.
Yes, that's correct. This general architecture and engineering consulting services agreement that Michael Baker's involved with is mainly engineering related, as opposed to planning work that they would have supported our planning department for the bus line redesign. So they're actually hold multiple agreements in different areas of PRT, engineering agreement, and architect agreement, and planning contracts. And this one's not related to the planning contract for bus line.
Thank you. No, I don't, no further questions for me.
I have a question. This renewal option that you're proposing in conjunction with the original contract only called for a 1-year extension.
That's correct, a 1-year optional extension.
And that's why beginning in January, you're going to be going out for bids for similar work for presumably an extended time that would commence after this option period is concluded?
That's correct. The new agreements would be put into place sometime before the end of 26 to ensure we have a continuity of services with the new agreements while these agreements are finishing up.
Thank you.
Point of clarification, just so that we're all on the same page, that this increase is taking us from 20 to 26 million. So it's a $6 million increase. I just wanted to make sure no one thought it was a $26 million increase.
Do any other board members have questions? Hearing none, I ask for a motion to move this to the full board.
So moved.
Do I have a
Second.
second? Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any against? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bilski. We have one last presentation by Mr. Sean McGurran of the audit of the fiscal year 2025 annual physical inventory.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman, members of the Performance Oversight Committee, other board members, and those attending in person and online. I'm Sean McGurran. I'm a supervising internal auditor with the PRT Internal Audit Department, and this morning I'll be presenting the results of the audit of internal controls over the FY 2025 annual physical inventory. Before I discuss the audit, I wanted to provide some background information about the annual physical inventory process and the department responsible for its coordination. So the purpose of performing an annual physical inventory is to ensure that on-hand quantities for each inventory item are accurately recorded in the PeopleSoft system so that transit operations are supported by having materials and supplies available when needed. On a day-to-day basis, the Inventory Operations Department is responsible for maintaining stock of materials, parts, supplies to support operations, the movements of these items between PRT locations, storerooms, and parts rooms, and any items ordered from outside vendors. This department uses the PeopleSoft system to record put away and depletion processes and to also verify items, quantities, and bin locations. Inventory Operations Department personnel, titles and positions include receivers, stock persons, material delivery persons, storeroom supervisors, assistant manager of inventory, and manager of inventory operations and distribution. In terms of dollars, for FY25, unaudited financial statements as of April 2025, the material and supply expenditures were approximately $44.9 million. Internal audit's objectives for this audit were to determine the adequacy of internal controls, determine if inventory items were accurately counted, determine if variances were resolved and adjustments were properly recorded in PeopleSoft, and to determine if the cutoff processes were properly followed for requisitions and receipts issued before and after the physical inventory procedures. The scope of our audit was FY25 inventory. A detailed audit methodology can be found in our full audit report. Internal audit conducted this performance audit in accordance with generally accepted government auditing standards. We observed PRT employees as they counted the inventory items. We statistically sampled and tested inventory counts and the cutoff processes at Manchester, South Hills Village, South Hills Junction, and the auto shop locations. Additionally, at these 4 locations and the Ross and West Mifflin operating locations, we judgmentally tested the accuracy of on-hand quantities recorded by the employees by independently counting a sample of inventory items and comparing our counts with the counts recorded on their count sheets. We also assisted in resolving any variances. In our opinion, the internal controls associated with the PRT FY25 annual physical inventory at Manchester, South Hills Village, South Hills Junction, Auto Shop, Ross, and West Mifflin are effective, and the processes are generally adequate. Based on a statistical sample of 378 items tested and a margin of error of plus or minus 5%, we're 95% confident that the true accuracy rate of items counts in the population is between 89 and 99%. We also judgmentally selected and counted 350 inventory items, which resulted in an accuracy rate of 97%. We noted the following strengths during the annual physical inventory. Compared to the prior year audit, there was an increase in item count accuracy percentages at Manchester, South Hills Village, and South Hills Junction. The auto shop remained at 100%. Cutoff processes were well controlled. All 80 of the requisitions and receipts that we reviewed as part of this testing were processed according to cutoff instructions, and overflow stock notices were effectively used and typically placed for items with overflow stock. We're pleased to note that the audit results were positive and there were no observations or advisory comments. Our auditing standards require us to follow up on prior audit recommendations. We note that all prior audit recommendations have been closed. Finally, we would like to thank Scott Katonka, Frank Marzenti, all inventory counters, and the data entry clerks, their cooperation and assistance during this audit. That concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions at this time.
Do any board members have questions? Hearing none, I respectfully request to have a motion to move this to the full board. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I
Second.
have a? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
That concludes the Performance Oversight Committee meeting. I do have one question that I want to go back to, and this concerns Eric and Member Fan's question. I believe Member Fan had asked for an overview or maybe documentation of the $6 million increase. Are we able to get that to Member Fan and just all board members, even if it's just, we're moving it forward already for voting, but even if it's just to better understand how that process is done, are we able to get some type of documents to the board members?
Yes, we can provide that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from board members? Hearing none, I ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
My name is Tom Bergender. I am Chair of the Technology Committee, and I'd like to call to order the Technology Committee at this time. For roll call, members of the committee,
Chris Purcell.
Tom Bergender. Rest of the board,
Emma Shukare.
Tia McClenny.
Bobby Coon.
Ariana
Jen
Abney.
Liptak.
the minutes of the July 17, 2025 Technology Committee meeting have been distributed. Do I have any discussion regarding those minutes?
Motion to approve them.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Now we have awarding of bids, and I'd like to call Justin Cava to make a presentation or to discuss these bids.
Thank you, and good morning, committee members. I have one item today for your consideration. This item was bid number B25-24R. This refers Cisco SmartNet licensing renewal. This is utilized by PRT's technology infrastructure group to maintain security and stability of our primary networking equipment. 580 suppliers were notified of the bid opportunity. 4 suppliers accepted the invitation. 4 bids were received. A recommendation that a contract be awarded to X Alliant LLC in the estimated amount of $238,102.41. This contract duration will be over a 3-year period with no renewal options. Any questions or comments on this bid? Okay, subject to any further questions, I respectfully request this bid be taken to the full board for approval.
I request a motion to take the bid to the board.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Now we have proposed resolutions. Jeffrey Devlin, would you present them, please?
Yes, good morning and thank you. And I will note on that prior slide that the lights were all blinking green, and those are happy days here. They don't always all blink green, and sometimes we get orange and red and have to work through them. So we appreciate your patience this morning as our Wi-Fi had a little bit of an issue. I have 2 resolutions for the committee's evaluation here this morning. They're both related to our fare system refresh as we work towards expiring the old Connect card system and moving towards the Ready Fare mobile system along with our Ready to Ride application. This is one of the last core pieces of it. This is our cash fare boxes. It is imperative from an equity standpoint that we continue to collect cash on our system. We take in a little bit about $4 million per year in cash at this time. So even with the heavy influence of the card system and the application Ready to Ride, we still do continue to need fare boxes. So we've been working through the past couple of years, as we've noted, with the different parts and system pieces and parts of this. This is the last major component of it. So RFP 2411 was put up for public bid. We had 3 quality responses. The committee actually had a fairly difficult time working through them. A lot of calls with bringing the vendors in to look at the equipment to make sure it was going to work on our system and it was going to be sturdy enough, et cetera. And the proposal that we're bringing to the board today is for Scheidenbachmann USA Incorporated. And this is for the purchase, installation, and maintenance of the cash fare box system. And I will note that these fare boxes will only take cash, that all other taps will occur on the Masabi validators. So this is for a 5-year contract, and we do have the 2 one-year periods added into this for a total of 7 years as needed, and that is good for the lifespan of this kind of equipment. The total not to exceed on this contract proposal is $20,929,408.67. So subject to any questions from the committee or board, I respectfully request this be presented to the full board. Thank you.
Any discussion? Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve. To move on to the full board.
Second?
Second.
Motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. My second resolution is to extend and amend an agreement that we already have It is with Flowbird, and initially it was set up for our fair vending machines and the initial purchase of smart cards, where we got $400,000 to start the transition. As we get ready to now kick into transition mode in the next few months, we are ready to order our next batch, which would be another 200,000 smart cards. These are dispensed out of the vending machines and also out of customer service here in this building. We're also requesting another 700,000 paper tickets, which are dispensed the same way I just mentioned. So we are requesting to add to this original contract another $911,246.39, which would bring the new total not to exceed to $12,477,447.41. That is a lot of fours. At any rate, that would take us through July 7th of 2029 on this contract. Subject to any questions from the board or committee, I respectfully request this be taken to the full board.
I make a motion to take this to the full board for approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now we have a presentation from Mr. Samuel Winward. Would you please make your presentation?
Hello, good morning. Thanks for sticking around. Good morning, board members and committee members. I'm Sam Winward. I'm with AIS, and I'm manager of performance analytics. And I worked with Adeline Bajani, our data analyst, on this presentation. And here today to present to you information on our rail automatic passenger counters and how we're able to use this now for ridership reporting and more in-depth analysis. Okay, so this is what they look like on the rails. This is big news for us because we've had this sort of technology, although it's different than the camera stereoscopic cameras that are shown here that count passengers. We've had this on bus for a while and been able to report ridership from the bus automatic passenger counters. But beginning just this year, we're officially using this technology that's shown here above the rail car doors, on both doors, to count passengers on and off. Wrong way. Okay, so if we look at prior years, previously we used the Farebox plus Masabi, which would be the mobile taps in terms of reporting ridership, combined with estimates of the free fare zone downtown. And this year, so far, obviously, as I'm saying, we're using APC. But the important thing to note here is that if we do look at the fare taps and Masabi, compared to the full picture of APC, we're pretty close in terms of what the estimate was of the free zone ridership, previously 44%, and this year 47%. There's always going to be month-to-month variability with that, especially with detours and the closures that are happening, but a good sign that so far we're pretty much in line with previous estimates. This is what the data looks like behind the scenes. So on the left is a timetable of the blue line, and I've highlighted one trip there, just the 9:21 a.m. trip, and then a few rows of the Dialect City Sense raw-ish underlying data, and the box there showing trip boarding. So the way that we do it is we would, for this 9:21 trip, we would calculate the average boardings of that trip and do the same for all the other surrounding trips, and then total up those trip level averages to get like a weekday average of the blue line in this case. So that'd be totaling all the 124 blue line trips shown on the timetable. Just a snippet of the timetable though here. The other item or column that's highlighted here is max load. So we can do that, use that for other types of analyses. And that's not always going to be the same as the trip boarding. Actually, usually hardly ever the same. It's going to be the trip boarding is going to be at least equal to the average max load, the maximum load, and that's the maximum amount of people on the vehicle at any one time. So what we can do with that is show capacity and utilization. And this is a dashboard that Adeline has put together. We have similar visuals on the bus side that our bus planning and scheduling team has been using for a while. But you can see the bars that kind of look like a reverse mountain over there on the left-hand side. That's the inbound trips in the morning, showing higher capacity. If you scroll down, you would see a similar thing on the outbound side. And this is the sort of tool that planning and scheduling and operations would be able to use. We tend to kind of like allow for as much flexibility and user adjustability as possible here. So it defaults to like an aggregate of the pick level, but you are able to select to any date range. You can also, we add some buttons up top. In this case, we are, I think, showing Monday and Friday, but you can take that out and see how that affects the averages as well, as we tend to have higher capacity in the middle of the week. That's trip level. We're also able to look stop level in terms of where exactly across the course of the trip the ons and the offs are happening that lead to that utilization. So in this case, that same 921 inbound trip, you can see that it's really not until we get towards downtown that we are reaching our maximum capacity. Typically, the reverse is shown on the outbound trips, where downtown will pick up a lot of people and carry that load throughout the course of the trip until it gets to the outer terminus. In terms of what that looks like for our official reporting so far, this is like year over year total monthly ridership on the rail. January and February, we were down given the plinth closures and detours as we expect, but really since April and July, we've been up year over year. That's especially encouraging given that Mount Washington Tunnel is still closed, and that's adding additional 8 minutes of travel. So it is positive signs so far in terms of the return to rail ridership. That's all. If there's any questions.
Questions?
Yeah, and Sam, I'm sure you said this and I was just blinking. On the previous slides, it showed the free fare zone ridership. That's not saying that 47% of our trips are free fare. That's saying 47% of our trips begin or end, or that's 47% of our boarding and alighting data. So it shows downtown is busy. It's not that 47% of our trips are free. Wanted to make that clarification.
Yeah, that's a really important point. It's the free fare zone, so they are allowed to travel free there, and that's to be expected.
So do we use this data to reconcile taps and paid fares?
To some extent, yes. So on the bus side, we definitely do that, and we're keeping track of kind of the difference. In this, like I've shown, we are going to use the tap. So in terms of us being able to use this, we first had to be validated with the FTA and did reconciliation with the Service Development Associates and had them do manual counts, and we're within 5% in terms of their counts, in terms of the people boarding and what the automatic passenger counters are showing. And then in terms of reconciling with the payments or the taps, we wouldn't expect it to match because, like Catherine said, a big portion of that is downtown free zone. So it's just a matter of how much kind of free ridership is happening downtown. But given that this is stop level, we are able to then see kind of where exactly these riders are getting on.
You should be able to determine that, shouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And also the accuracy, that's stunning. It's only 95%. But why is that?
Sorry, that is an excellent question, Dr. Purcell. This is one of the sources we use to reconcile on the fares. It's a little different on the rail than it is on bus. Part of this is we've been using it longer on the bus side, but we reconcile a testing program, so our sample program with the Federal Transit Administration, and we use a combination of this automatic data, the fare box data, and then, as Sam mentioned, the Service Development Associate to go out and double check what's going on where. From that information, we have an idea on the ridership. Then we can come back and see the delta between the fare collection and what's going on. This also starts relying back on our Service Development Associates for their observations. So on rail, it's much more likely that someone will, if we have a fare box attendant, somebody's walking by, we'll get them. We see less fare compliance, for instance, during Steelers games because we crowd people on in the afternoon. But when we look at that fare estimate, so the difference between the fare evasion and the fare estimate, this is one of the data sources that helps us back up. This is what we're actually getting, and that's what it comes out per rider. It might be a good idea for us to have a subsequent presentation on how all that is calculated out. I think that would be really helpful for us.
Good.
But we'll use every data set we can get that's validated out.
Yeah, sure.
These counters, is one purpose for them to enable you to determine what stops pick up the most people and how that might impact on the crowding or overcrowding of vehicles?
Yeah, absolutely. this last dashboard that we shown that's stop level, showing where exactly those ons are happening. But we can also, also have different views that we're working on now that's really just average stop level ridership, irrespective of when it happened on the trip, and able to look at, the stop level, like you're saying, of where those ons and offs are happening and help plan for the crowding that's occurring on the trips.
And so Philip might take this data into consideration when he adjusts the service frequency or the buses that are deployed?
Yeah, definitely. That would be one of our main targets of this. And he's already using kind of these similar dashboards that exist on the bus side for scheduling, but that would be a main target audience.
Any other questions?
This is Bobby. Very quick question. Is this analysis also used for targeting increasing ridership or diagnosing loss of ridership?
It would be. I mean, since we're just getting started, we don't have that much like year-over-year specific comparison with like which trips are going up or down. But we would be looking at kind of definitely route level, trip level, and what stops are showing increases or decreases. I think stop level would be the biggest help here in terms of where ridership is potentially shifting over time.
Thank you.
Hearing no other questions, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. And this concludes the Technology Committee report for today. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much, everybody.